The rain-slicked streets of Los Angeles gleamed under the sodium glow of street lamps, turning the city into a shimmering mosaic of forgotten dreams and flickering neon promises. Vin Diesel, the towering action star whose gravelly voice had echoed through blockbuster theaters for decades, slipped through the back alley like a shadow, his broad shoulders hunched against the downpour. He wasn't here for the flash of paparazzi bulbs or the adoring crowds that usually trailed him like loyal hounds. Tonight, he was just a man checking on a quiet investment, a modest Italian bistro tucked away in the heart of Koreatown that bore his late father's name, Rocco's Trattoria. The place was his secret sanctuary, a nod to the immigrant grit that had shaped him, far from the roar of Hollywood sets. But as he pushed open the creaky service door, the familiar scent of garlic and simmering marinara hit him like a wave of nostalgia, only to be shattered by a sound that stopped him dead in his tracks, a soft, wrenching sob echoing from the dimly lit kitchen, raw and unguarded, the kind of cry that carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken defeats. If you believe in the quiet power of kindness, in second chances that can rewrite a broken life, hit that like button right now, drop a comment with your own story of unexpected grace, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that good still exists, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks for more tales that warm the soul. We're building a community here, one heartfelt moment at a time. Vin paused in the threshold, his massive frame filling the doorway like a sentinel, water dripping from his leather jacket onto the worn linoleum floor. The kitchen was a hive of controlled chaos even at closing time, pots clanging faintly as the last dishwasher scrubbed away the remnants of the evening rush, but that cry, it sliced through the mundane hum like a knife through silk. He recognized the voice immediately, though he'd only heard it laced with polite efficiency during his rare, incognito visits. Elena, the young server who'd been with Rocco's for just over a year, her warm smile and effortless grace making her a favorite among the regulars. She was in her mid-20s, with dark curls that framed a face etched by lines too deep for her age, eyes that sparkled with a forced optimism even on the slowest nights. Vin had noticed her before, the way she lingered a beat too long at tables with families, her laughter a little too bright when a tipsy patron flirted harmlessly, as if she were drawing strength from the fragments of joy around her. But tonight, there was no mask. He edged closer, silent as a ghost, peering through the steam-housed pass-through window into the prep area where she stood alone, her back to him, shoulders heaving as she clutched the edge of the stainless steel counter. A crumpled eviction notice lay splayed before her like an accusation, the red ink stark against the white paper, final notices from the landlord circling her like vultures. Elena's sobs weren't the dramatic wails of a movie scene. They were the quiet unraveling of a woman who'd fought too long against a tide that refused to turn, each gasp a testament to battles fought in silence, bills that multiplied like weeds, a sick mother back in the cramped apartment they shared, the gnawing fear that one more shift without tips would mean choosing between medicine and a meal. Elena's story wasn't one of silver spoons or spotlight chases. It was woven from the rough threads of survival, the kind that Hollywood romanticized but rarely touched. Born in a dusty border town in Mexico, she crossed into the States at 16 with nothing but a backpack stuffed with her mother's faded recipes and a dream of building something better. The journey had been a gauntlet of shadowed trucks and whispered warnings, her heart pounding with the terror of separation from the family she'd left behind to chase opportunity. Los Angeles had welcomed her with open arms of concrete and exhaust, a city that chewed up the hopeful and spat out the hollowed. She'd started as a busgirl in a dingy diner, fingers raw from scrubbing grease that seemed to embed itself in her soul, enduring leers from cooks twice her age and the constant ache of feet swollen from 12-hour stands. Rocco's had been a step up, a beacon discovered through a tip from a sympathetic regular, a place where the owner, an old Italian expat who'd passed the torch to investors before fading into retirement, valued hard work over pedigree. Elena had poured herself into it, memorizing the specials with the fervor of a scholar, charming tables with stories of her abuela's secret sauce that masked the homesickness clawing at her chest. But the cracks had started small, a fever that kept her mother bedridden for weeks, draining the emergency fund she'd scrimped together from overtime shifts. Then the pandemic's aftershocks, when reservations dwindled and tips evaporated like morning fog, forcing her to pick up side gigs as a night cleaner in office buildings that loomed empty and accusatory. She'd smile through it all, telling herself it was temporary, that the American dream was just a few more months of grit away. Yet here she was, on a Thursday night in September, the eviction notice a brutal punctuation to her unraveling resolve. As she wiped her eyes with the hem of her apron, the fabric already stained from spilled wine and spilled dreams, Elena whispered a prayer in Spanish, her voice cracking on the words, something about strength for the weak, light in the endless dark. She didn't hear the soft creak of Vin's boot on the threshold, didn't sense the eyes watching her with a recognition that went beyond celebrity curiosity. To him, in that moment, she was every underdog he'd ever played on screen, but real, raw, and right in front of him. Vin Diesel wasn't a man who wore his heart on his sleeve, not in the glare of red carpets or the scripted vulnerability of interviews. His life had been a forge of loss and reinvention, the father gone too soon, the streets of New York that had taught him to build walls as high as his frame, the improbable leap into acting that turned a poet's soul into a box office titan. Rocco's was his anchor, a place where he could shed the fast and furious armor and just be Dominic Toretto's spiritual kin, cooking pasta with his own hands on off days, listening to the staff's unfiltered tales over glasses of Chianti. He'd handpicked the manager, a grizzled vet named Marco who'd known his dad back in the day, and he'd quietly funneled profits back into the community, scholarships for the kids of line cooks, free meals for the homeless who wandered in from Skid Row. But Elena, she'd slipped under his radar, a quiet force amid the bustle, until now. Hearing her cry ignited something primal in him, a surge of protectiveness that blurred the line between owner and outsider. He could walk away, let the night staff handle the close, retreat to his Malibu sanctuary with its ocean views and armored gates. Or he could step in, risk the exposure that came with meddling in lives that weren't scripted for happy endings. His hand hovered over the door handle, pulse thundering in his ears like the bass drop of one of his movie soundtracks, the rain outside a relentless drumbeat urging him forward. In that suspended breath, memories flooded him, his own mother's weary eyes after long shifts at the factory, the way she'd hum old Italian lullabies to chase away the chill of unpaid bills. Vin straightened, his jaw set, like granite, and pushed the door open fully, the hinges protesting softly as if the universe itself held its breath. The kitchen air wrapped around him, thick with the ghosts of rosemary and regret, and Elena startled at the intrusion, spinning on her heel with a gasp that caught in her throat. Her eyes, red-rimmed and wide, locked onto his, first with confusion, then a flicker of impossible recognition. Vin raised a hand, palm out in the universal sign of peace, his voice emerging low and steady, the rumble that had narrated epics now laced with genuine concern. He didn't need to explain who he was, the beard shadowed his features, but the stature, the quiet intensity, it was unmistakable. Elena's face crumpled further, not from fear but from the exhaustion of holding it all together, and she turned away, mumbling apologies about the mess, the late hour, anything to deflect the vulnerability she'd let slip. Vin moved closer, deliberate and unhurried, his presence filling the space without overwhelming it, and he picked up the eviction notice with fingers that had gripped steering wheels in high-speed chases but now trembled slightly with restrained emotion. As he scanned the words, final warning, immediate vacate, arrears mounting like storm clouds, his mind raced through scenarios, not the heroic saves of his films, but practical lifelines, a call to Marco about an advance, a discreet wire transfer that could buy time. But it was more than money. He saw in her the echo of his younger self, hustling odd jobs to keep the lights on, the fear that one wrong turn could erase years of climbing. He set the paper down gently, his hand lingering on hers for a fraction of a second, a bridge of shared humanity, and began to unravel the story she'd buried deep. Elena hesitated, then the words tumbled out in a rush, the mother's cancer treatments that insurance deemed experimental, the siblings scattered across states with hands too full to help, the nights she'd lain awake calculating how many shifts it would take to bridge the gap, only to watch it widen with every unexpected fee. Her voice, accented with the lilt of her homeland, wove a tapestry of resilience laced with despair, and Vin listened, truly listened, his eyes never leaving her face, absorbing the weight she carried like an invisible yoke. As the clock ticked past midnight, the restaurant's hum faded to a whisper, the dishwasher's rhythmic swish the only counterpoint to Elena's confession. Vin felt the pull of his own history tugging at him, memories of bartering poetry for meals in Alphabet City, of the day he'd auditioned for a role that changed everything, not because of talent alone, but because someone, a casting director with tired eyes, had seen the fire beneath the facade. He guided her to a stool at the prep island, the warm wood scarred from years of knife work and hurried meals, and poured 2 glasses of the house red from a half-empty bottle forgotten in the cooler. The wine was robust, earthy, a vintage his father had loved, and as they sat in the amber glow of the pendant lights, Vin shared fragments of his own scars, not the polished anecdotes from talk shows, but the raw edges, the eviction from his childhood home at 7, the single mother's unyielding faith that had kept them afloat, the quiet vow he'd made to never forget the taste of desperation. Elena's sobs had ebbed to hiccuping breaths, her hands wrapped around the glass like a lifeline, and in that exchange, a fragile trust bloomed,